Today we have updates on the Scream spinoff focusing on Agent Kirby Reed, the Conjuring Last Rites, the My Bloody Valentine reboot, and Wolf Creek Legacy. Now let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. To kick off this particular update video, we're talking all about the Conjuring 4 Last Rites, baby! We're all still so excited about Conjuring movies, right? Right? As it was teased to us at the end of The Nun 2, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are back to reprise their roles of Ed and Lorraine Warren once again, likely for the last time. Deadline just gave us another casting update this weekend, which adds Mia Tomlinson and Ben Hardy to this demonic extended universe. The greatest horror director of all time will be helming this project, Michael Chavez, who directed classics like The Conjuring 3, The Nun 2, and The Curse of La Llorona. I'm sure this movie will be just as good as those last three, bangers. Thankfully, it is confirmed that this will be the final installment. The finale will be released in theaters next year on September 5th, and I guess I'll see it. A series heading to HBO Max was also announced last year, but we haven't gotten any updates on that recently. While this could be a fresh new start for a franchise that is in desperate need of such a thing, it might be time to put this one in the grave for good, and without any bells attached to strings. As we talked about in previous updates here, a third Wolf Creek movie is on the way from a similar group of people who made the original two. The director of those two films, Greg McLean, is letting the sequel's editor, Sean Lahiff, take on directing duties for this entry that begins filming early next year, eyeing a late 2025 release. The plot description for this one reads, "This time around, it's a family of American tourists who wander innocently into Taylor's hunting grounds. When the parents sacrifice themselves to save their children, the kids find themselves alone, lost, and hunted in the vast Australian wilderness. Will this fresh prey to wily, resourceful Zoomers prove harder for the aging predator to consume?" Today's update comes from a familiar source, David Clare Bennett, who recently interviewed Art the Clown actor David Howard Thornton. Last week, David interviewed John Jarrett, who plays Mick Taylor in these splatter movies, and John detailed a few interesting elements to this third film. He says, "It's dark and creepy again. It's more like the first one. With the second one, we had a bit of fun, cracked a few jokes. For this one, the dark creepy thing is the ultimate when it comes to playing Mick. Just creeping up and being scary. He never runs, never yells, never dies." I think this all but confirms what the suspected ending will be to this movie. Mick rides on into the Australian sunset looking for more innocent people to torture. I mean, these days you always have to have a sequel, right? Or should I say fourth entry? Forquel? Is that something? Despite all that, I'm excited to see this new entry that franchise creator Greg McLean hyped up recently, saying this movie will feel new again because of the fresh perspective. Director Sean Lahiff seems to be aiming at making a movie that captures the terror of the original while standing on its own two legs. I hope he delivers there. We'll find out next year. More updates to come. I think you guys know at this point that I'm not really crazy about movie rumors because oftentimes they end up being fake or made up by random Twitter accounts. But there are a few third-party sources I've come to trust over the years. Cinestealth, for instance, recently put out a tweet regarding the Blumhouse My Bloody Valentine reboot that was recently announced, and at the very least, this new rumor is incredibly thought-provoking. Cinestealth writes, "Not 100% confirmed, but there's talk that Blumhouse's My Bloody Valentine reboot will ignore the original film while keeping the mine collapse backstory. It's been called a reboot, but this approach sounds very similar to the 2009 remake. Maybe Harry Warden will be the actual killer this time around instead of a whodunit mystery, and that's why they're taking the mine collapse catalyst." This caught my attention because that's an angle this franchise has yet to explore. In both the original 1981 film and the 2009 3D remake, Harry Warden is just the catalyst to set up a whodunit for the current storyline of both respective films. While yes, the two movies have different outcomes, it always ends up being someone else wearing the same miner's suit. If the Blumhouse movie ends up actually being about Harry Warden's murder spree, that could give this movie a good enough excuse to be necessary. Also, if Cinestealth is right here and this reboot is disconnected from the other two films, they could make this backstory whatever they wanted it to be without any restraints on. While I do love Harry Warden's backstory, don't get me wrong, he gets trapped in a collapsed mine and has to eat his coworkers to stay alive. Then of course he goes after the supervisors and like rips out their hearts and all that stuff. That's great. But a new movie can kind of twist that, make it its own, maybe even make it more devious. Personally, I'm way more into something like that rather than trying to recreate a new storyline that connects to the past. That path just always gets messy because of those restraints. You have to make certain things happen, and sometimes it ruins new movies that could have been great without a grand connection to its predecessor. I'm looking at you, The First Omen and Scream 6. Reboots need to stand on their own these days. The general audience is slowly realizing that they're sick of nostalgia and they just want something fresh, even in reboots of the classics. This would be an excellent path for the Blumhouse reboot to take so this movie actually has a reason to exist. It loses the whodunit angle, which might be a deal breaker for some, but there are other ways to make some great slashers. Blumhouse tends to be hit or miss for me, so let's hope that this one strikes gold. We have some good rumors and some not so great rumors about the new Scream spinoff that will focus on Agent Kirby Reed. Let's rip that band-aid off first and talk a little bit about the bad. Spyglass is likely distributing the film despite being under constant scrutiny from the Scream fanbase. Production Weekly detailed recently that Outer Banks Entertainment will tackle the film, however, which is of course Kevin Williamson's company. Kevin will likely be heavily involved with that project, just like Scream 7, a film that he's currently set to direct. I think we all knew that Spyglass would be involved considering they still own the rights, but it still sucks to hear. The good news, however, is that Kevin Bacon is rumored to be attached to this project. I could totally see him playing a Ryan Hardy-style character here, but in the Scream universe. For those who are unfamiliar, Kevin Bacon led the Kevin Williamson-produced TV show The Following, which was actually based on unused ideas for the Scream franchise. This would be a crazy full-circle moment to see the Baconator join the cast of a new Scream property, playing a character similar to that TV show. The Scream franchise is certainly in a tough spot right now, but putting the drama aside, this spin-off sounds really interesting so far. I'm hoping to get some more concrete updates on it, likely after Scream 7 wraps up. Stay tuned, my Ghostface-loving friends. For today's Terrifier 3 update, I want to get up on my soapbox about a certain controversy regarding these films. Admittedly, the Terrifier flicks are not for everybody. Some folks just aren't interested in seeing a chaotic evil clown cut people down into piles of flesh for 20+ minutes, and I respect that. Maybe you like horror films with a deeper meaning, which Terrifier doesn't necessarily have. These films are meant to be fun and slightly mindless unless you're neurotic like me and can't wait to see how they expand the lore. Regardless, Terrifier is niche and there's no denying that. However, it seems like every week or so, some idiot on Twitter goes viral for claiming these movies are misogynistic. It's by far the worst controversy surrounding this series because it usually comes from accounts that claim they haven't even seen the movies they're talking about. It's so disingenuous, and thankfully Art the Clown actor David Howard Thornton has spoken up about this recently. During a brand new interview with NME, Thornton says Art kills a lot more men than he does women, and human beings actually emphasize more for female characters than they do male characters. You want to see the woman come out on top and kick this guy's ass. These films have passed the Bechdel test and are very much about female empowerment. Damien and I were raised in families with very strong-willed women. Like, my mom wore the pants in the family. Damien came from a family of all women. His mom, his sisters, his dad was really not in the picture at all. So actually, the two of us are very, very feminist in a lot of ways. And it's true. Across the two Terrifier films so far, Art has murdered 19 men and 16 women. You might be able to form an argument against these movies if the number of women was significantly higher, but it's not. The Terrifier films do in fact pass the Bechdel test as well, which means the film requires at least 2 female characters who have a conversation that does not involve a man. You can't say that about most slasher films, but Terrifier has beaten the odds. On top of all of that, to hear that both franchise creator Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton grew up around very strong-willed women makes this all the more relevant. Not only does Terrifier 2's climax feature a triumphant moment where a woman cuts off the clown's head, ending his current murder spree, but the franchise has also shot multiple female actresses into the limelight, including Jenna Cannell, Catherine Corcoran, and Lauren Lavera. All 3 of them are respected actresses with successful careers in the entertainment industry. I'm just really sick and tired of baseless accusations flying around from people who want nothing more than attention. I've met David Howard Thornton and Damien Leone on multiple occasions now, and they are the nicest people you'll ever encounter. The whole Terrifier family is made up of incredible individuals, some I'm even thankful to call friends. I'll get off my soapbox now, but I would strongly advise just ignoring these posts. Anyways, I can't wait to see part 3 arriving in theaters on October 11th of this year. We are getting very close to the release of this one with only 18 more days to go. Bring it on, baby! What do you guys think about today's updates? Which one had you the most excited? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.